Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Physicians on Call with the Just One Thing for Health program. Tonight's featured doctor is Dr. Nisha Chellam, and she is with her practice in Wisconsin, Michigan. That's where it is. And I'm going to stop right there and allow her to tell us a little bit more about her. You saw some information from her and the challenge of this week to add more seeds and nuts to your vegetables. And let's just get right into it. Hi, Dr. Chellam.
Hi, Belinda. How are you? Thank you for having me. So one of the things, we are in Michigan, and our practice is called Holistic and Integrative Center of Novi. And we're neither holistic nor integrative. I always say that, but I have both those names because that's how people understand we're a different type of practice. What we actually practice is called functional medicine. So we get to the root cause of why somebody has a problem and try to rebuild their health. So we're looking at the biochemistry and physiology rather than just looking at the symptom and giving a natural supplement. I tell people holistic means you getting natural treatments, but we're actually trying to rebuild your health. And nutrition is a huge part of that. So that's really what we are as a functional medical practice, very plant-based. But we get our patients, we're not opposed to having people who don't want to be plant-based, but we make sure when they leave our practice, they're at least plant-strong.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yep.
And how is it that you got into this particular niche with your practice?
So I would say this is my 22nd year in practice, and I did mindless medicine for years. And what mindless medicine is, what we're all taught in medical school. One of the greatest joys of going to medical school is to be able to diagnose a disease and connect it to a drug. So the faster you could diagnose and the more number of drugs, the names you knew, the smarter you were as a physician. And that's one of the things. And even our question answers is all about what is the treatment for this? How do you diagnose this? There is nothing when you really look at medical training, nothing about health and wellness. It's really geared to identifying disease states and how do we best treat it effectively and fast. And when we call treatment, we don't look at it as resolution. We don't realize treatment means maintaining at an acceptable level. So you're a diabetic, your blood sugars, if they're 140, they're great. But if you're normal, if your blood sugars are 140, they're high. It doesn't make sense to me. Whether you're a diabetic or not, you're the same human being. Why is a diabetic okay with a blood sugar of 140 and the rest of us okay with a blood sugar of less than 99? So after about a few years, I worked at the VA, and the VA is very strict with guidelines. I realized I was giving my patients medications, and their list of diseases just kept growing. So I took care of the diabetes. It was under control. Cholesterol was under control. The next thing they have arthritis. Then you treat the arthritis. Then I suddenly realized they have memory is failing. And, the list just grows. But all of their symptoms that they have brought to the table are kind of getting better, except new ones are forming. So it's like you're playing whack-a-mole with the disease process because you never address the underlying root cause of the very first problems. I call it the first domino effect. And so when I decided to quit the VA, I said, I'm going to do a lifestyle clinic. I had no idea, I had no business plan, nothing, just passion, got out. And I realized that you spend time with patients, they still don't get it. Till I started falling sick, and I thought I was going to be a diabetic. I was a pre-diabetic. And I also was gaining weight, losing my hair, pretty much fatigued. And I went to the close university here, and the endocrinologist said, everything looks good. Just come back in 6 months. We'll just take your vitamin D and B12. And at that time, somebody introduced me to functional medicine, and I realized the root cause of my problem. I had underlying Hashimoto's, which I had had probably 9 years, which was, my daughter was, I think, around 9 or 10 when I got diagnosed, and she was my second child. And when I applied the principles of functional medicine, so functional medicine is how is the body functioning? If it's not functioning, what does it need to function properly? Or what do you need to remove so it can function properly? These are the only two questions we ask. So did detailed blood tests, found that I had a lot of gut inflammation, a lot of food sensitivities, underlying viral infection, got all of those treated. It took me 18 months, and I realized every disease process can be addressed this way. And literally the ways the cells respond, it's thought, trauma, or toxin. So change your thought, heal your trauma, and make sure anything that's toxic to you, you remove it and replace it with the right nutrient. And once your cells begin to work well, you pretty much get your health back. And I think most people want that. When they go to the doctor, they're going with the hope they get better. But we have accepted going to the doctor means getting a diagnosis and getting put on a drug. And our practice is trying to shift that, telling people you have the right to be healthy without the need to be on a medication. Now, whether it be nutrition, whether it be changing your lifestyle, whether it be change your environment, that's what we look at. So that's been my journey. And being plant-based came a little later as I got to learn about nutrition. I've always been a vegetarian. Who doesn't love cheese, right? And who doesn't love yogurt? Coming from India, yogurt is a huge part of our culture. Buttermilk is a huge part of our culture. But as I delved deeper into nutrition, I just realized a lot of these things we don't necessarily need. And for the kind of lifestyle we live, it's very different. And I find getting plant-based really shifts your energy. Also makes it more fun to cook. Because I think when once you do plant-based, it's just the world just opens up to you when it comes to what you can eat, right? It's not just throw a ham into your beans. It's like pretty much so many colors, so many textures, so many tastes, different tastes, herbs and spices. So I think I just find it fun to have this kind of a practice where you get to know what each ingredient, everything that nature has given us is a medicine in and of itself, or it can be just a nutrition. It can be both. And it's just how you use it. So that's where we are as far as our practice goes. So I know today's challenge is seeds and nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of seeds and nuts. I would say I think the biggest confusion when it comes to nutrition has been the oils, right? People want avocado oil or coconut oil. I mean, the big thing about coconut oil, and somebody said coconut oil is pure poison. And I'm like, all right, that really bothered a lot of people. But in general, what I find is, this is what I do. I do very detailed blood tests being a functional medical doctor. The minute you introduce oil into your diet, what oil does is it actually increases the heating point. Your food cooks faster, but most people think oil adds taste. Oil, when you take a teaspoon of oil, maybe other than olive oil, really oil, nobody wants to eat oil. What it does is just increases that heating point. But another way to add the fat, but actually have nutrient-dense fat and not just be oil that sticks to your blood vessel, are the seeds and nuts. For instance, sunflower seeds, so high in iron. Just a handful, when menstruating women have a handful of sunflower seeds, you lose a gram of the iron during your menstrual cycle. This actually helps you. Nuts in general, they not only add the flavor, they've been found to reduce cardiovascular disease. And it's actually an enzymatic action that reduces the LDL and the LDL particles. LDL, I always tell people, remember it as lousy cholesterol, and the HDL is the healthy one. And they get packaged in bad packages called ApoB. The bad packages go down when you use a lot of seeds and nuts. They increase the sensitivity of insulin. So basically, your cells begin to respond to insulin, so glucose is not floating around and stimulating your adrenals, and you're not storing it as fat. They also reduce what we call inflammation. So fat, cholesterol per se may not be bad unless it gets oxidized. So it becomes rancid in your blood. And actually, nuts have been shown to avoid or prevent this formation of rancid or oxidized lousy cholesterol. And the other important thing is our DNA gets damaged very often because we're constantly turning over cells. That's how we continue to, dead cells go out, there's a turnover. In fact, in a year, you have a completely new body. So that during that turnover, there's a lot of DNA damage that can happen. And seeds and nuts, when they're included in your diet, they actually repair the DNA much faster. Your cells are much stronger. So at the same time, there's a specific amount you can have. It's really 20%. It's not like, you can eat a whole bag of almonds and actually gain weight and have things go in the wrong direction. So you have to have a certain amount. It's usually 20% in terms of caloric intake of most of the seeds and nuts. And I think the ones that have been studied are walnuts, macadamia, pecans, almonds. Cashews, they're the most tastiest, but I would say they are probably more inflammatory if you have a lot of other issues. So go for the walnuts, pecans, and almonds. Or macadamia is very high in fat, but it's also got a lot of the other good qualities. So that's what I would say is if you want to just add some flavor, kind of the fatty taste to your food, just toast and crush those nuts over the salad, or make them into a creamy sauce. Soak them overnight, blend them with spices, and pour them over vegetables. They taste really good. Just be careful on the amount. Just don't overdo it, but I think most people will find the food is tasty. We make a lot of cheeses with nuts, and we make sweets with nuts. You can make savory dishes with nuts. I mean, pretty much they can be the topping that adds really the flavor and the bulk of your food. Is there anything that I can answer?
Great. Yes, well, we did have some questions for you.
Okay.
So first question that came through was, how do I choose fresh nuts?
Okay, that's a tough question. So it's probably one of the biggest challenges. Learning about nutrition in this country has been that our food system is so regulated. So a lot of the food is treated because they don't want it to be infected, or there are a lot of regulations contaminated. So I usually tell our clients to go to nuts.com. It's a website, and actually buy the unblanched raw almonds. So in India, when we were growing up, we used to have an almond tree, and it's very difficult to take out the almonds. You have to break open the cover, get in, and you'll get a small almond. It's just addictive. But once they take it out, what they do is they blanch it, they treat it, and nuts are very well known to catch, have fungal infection. So you really want to go to a reputable source, and I find nuts.com, most of their products are pretty good. When you buy it at the stores, if you can't, I think you can just buy it at many of the health food stores. We have something called Plum Market in Michigan. I don't know if it's anywhere else around, but and then Trader Joe's has some, but usually Plum Market. Whole Foods is always there. I think they're across the country in many states. They do have some good quality stuff, but in this day and age, of course, the biggest marketer, Amazon. You get it on Amazon. Any of the organic nuts, those are also easily available.
Nice. This is interesting. This came across. What are your favorite milks? And how do you make the milk?
Okay. So I'm assuming they're asking about the nut-based milk.
Yes.
Okay. So the milk, there is on Amazon, there's something called the almond cow milk maker, or I think it's called the almond cow milk maker. I don't know why they have the word cow in that, but it just looks like a little water heater. You soak the nuts overnight. Now, the nuts do have what we call the lectins. So you soak them overnight, you dump the water just like the legumes. Like peanut is a legume nut, and then like cashew nut, walnuts, they're tree nuts, different types of nuts. But you soak them overnight. I like to soak them in warm water, and you dump the water out. Now with almonds, they have a covering, and once they're soaked overnight, all you have to do is squeeze them, the cover comes off and it becomes really white. So it becomes like a white milk. You put it into the almond milk maker, which has a little container, and you put water and just push it and it becomes milk. If you don't have any of those fancy equipment, put it in a blender, add some water, and you blend it. If you want thick almond milk, but if you don't like the residue, you have to put it through a cheesecloth, or there's even a nut-based bag where you can just squeeze it. It's just very messy. This is why I would say invest in an almond milk maker. There's a soybean milk maker too, but they run around, if they're on really good sale, like, the Prime days, you get it for $86. And if you, otherwise, I think the original price is $125. So you don't have to add anything. What I would do is I put a couple of drops of vanilla, or I have the vanilla bean. I blend it with my almonds, or I add a little cinnamon and a date to make it a little sweet. So there are different things you can do with the almonds. You can make cashew milk. You can make pecan milk the same way. I've never tried walnuts. I've not tried soybean too. I think soybean also, you're supposed to soak them. Soybean particularly, one of the specialties of our practice is thyroid health. Soybeans raw should not be had in thyroid health. For that matter, none of the cruciferous vegetables should be had raw. They should be cooked. But that being said, really these milks, that's what you do. You soak them overnight, dump the water, put new water, blend it, strain it, and you get the milk. And you can add any flavor to it. And it's probably the best milk that you can ever make at home. And it's you can make it in, I think they last at least 3 days in your refrigerator without any preservatives.
That is awesome. So we've got a question here about the lengthening of telomeres. Would that be impacted by incorporating nuts into your diet?
I don't think I saw a study about the telomeres and nuts, but I did see the one about the DNA damage. And really the telomeres are your chromosomes. And I feel like, if it's going to help with the DNA damage, it should. But again, I'm extrapolating. I just don't know if there are any studies. I don't think I should specifically look for those. So the answer is I don't know, but I sure hope so, because they are tasty.
Okay. So let's see. We did have a nice list of questions come through. And much of that was thanks to Lisa Arnold, who compiled some of these. One of the questions that I'm actually curious about, should we eat nuts daily?
That's a tough question. So the way I recommend, especially fats, I have a specific pyramid in my practice, what I've seen over the years as we've changed people's nutrition. A lot of our patients become plant strong, like I said, towards the end of their journey with us. And I do a blood test after we've changed their diet. Everything improves. Sometimes the fatty acids go up. And I realize when I talk to them, they've added so much nuts. They love the nuts. They're eating it 2-3 times a day. I think it impacts to some degree how much your liver can get loaded because it's fat still. Now, I don't know if it's because they were sick in the past and, I'm not doing any studies. But I've noticed, and I actually have them back off nuts. I tell them to do it 3 times a week. Just like how sometimes I find if they have insulin resistance or triglycerides, I have them back off their grains. So I would say 2 to 3 times a week. If you're having a handful, that's fine. But most studies show that on a regular basis, if you're having nuts, it's pretty good. I just think we're a country of abundance and we tend to overdo everything. And it may be that's one of the things that we need to back off. And just because it's great, it doesn't mean you just do a lot of it.
Awesome. So yes, Lisa, go ahead.
Sorry. Can eating nuts cause gallstones or kidney stones, Dr. Chellam?
You know, I don't think so. I don't think there's been any study that shows gallstones or kidney stones with nuts. But once you have it, nuts can hurt you. Like you will feel the pain if you have gallstones or your gallbladder is dysfunctional because they are fat. Remember, the gallbladder squeezes out bile, which emulsifies fat. So when you eat like avocado or nuts and you have a gallbladder dysfunction, you can feel the pain. But I don't think it actually causes, no. It's usually most of the time it's the milk products.
Good.
Awesome. So Dr. Chellam, tell us a couple of success stories of patients who've gone on a whole food plant-based diet that you've worked with.
So I would say my greatest challenge has been like when I have the meat and potato guys who are being sent by their wives saying, you got to go take your care of your health. And they are like, there's no way I'm doing any of this. So the way we work in our program is through education. And what I find, instead of telling people what to do, if you educate them like what we are doing, hey, these are the benefits and this is what you would see. What we do is we go with what is easy for them to do, like drink water. Can we just have, what is the best vegetable you like? And then we add, seeds and nuts or something to make it tasty. So one of the things that we see consistently in our practice, and in fact, I want to almost give a guarantee, if you work with us, this will happen, is reduction of insulin resistance, which means a lot of times diabetes can be completely reversed. And we see it consistently. It's page 6 on our blood test panel. And I tell them when they start, I can fix page 6. When you fix page 6, it affects your cholesterol. That's your insulin resistance. In fact, that's the basis. So I think most of our patients, men in general, lose between 33 and 42 pounds over a period of 4 months. And this is by eating. So all they did is shifted from eating dead food to live foods. That's the way I put it across to them. And taking food out of a packet is like taking food out of its coffin. And we teach them never to take anything out of a packet. And so that's, I would say, the biggest victory for us has been reversal of insulin resistance. The other important thing, which I don't think many people talk about, is the resolution of depression and anxiety. As people become more plant-based, I think it shifts your gut bacteria. And a lot of times they are no longer they don't have those panic attacks. This is something that we had recently a client who, she just would cancel her appointments with her friends. She would not go to a lot of, she was running a business and literally she had to close her business because of her panic attacks and anxiety because she couldn't show up for a lot of the meetings. And all we did was shift how she ate. She became very plant strong. You know, one of the biggest challenges is when people don't gain weight, they tend to eat whatever they want. And she was one of those. She never gained any weight, so she just enjoyed food. And we just made her very plant-based, and that's because her husband came to our program and he got off his blood pressure, cholesterol, and diabetes medicine. And she was already eating mostly like him, but she was doing her own stuff and completely took away her panic attacks. She says, you know, I try to put myself in those situations that would give me anxiety and panic episodes, and I don't seem to have them anymore. And it's completely, she attributes it to being a plant-based. And in fact, we have a closed community. And what she has done is she puts out a lot of information about plant-based meals because she's become the biggest advocate we have. So, and it looks like I'm frozen. So I'm going to, am I frozen to you guys?
You are.
I'm going to shut my camera and come back on, okay? So that way that helps.
Okay. Okay.
But we can still talk. If you have
We
any.
have
Okay.
some additional questions for you too. Lisa, did you have another one?
I sure do. Are peanuts really not true nuts?
They are legumes. So we have legume seeds, I think they're called. They're not necessarily called nuts. So peanuts, unfortunately, they are associated with a toxin called aflatoxin. So it's very difficult to get really, you got to have a very robust constitution at least in this country to eat peanuts. Like in where I come from, which is India, peanuts were like the snack. The peanuts harvesting, everybody would have peanuts. We had peanut, the brittle. We would roast peanuts. It's probably the most high protein snack we would have. Here it's a little more, it's again how it's regulated. They're not necessarily nuts, but they're called legumes. So if you have like a lot of gluten sensitivity or a lot of gut inflammation, peanuts can actually bother you. And the allergies also, which you've seen a big surge in allergies in the 1990s, I think it started. Or early 1990s has been how the peanut is being grown. So there's been a shift in that. But yes, they are high protein. If you get a good quality one, I think you should include them in your diet.
How do you compare nuts and seeds? Do you think that their nutritional profiles are very similar and both beneficial, or would you prefer one over the other?
Yeah. So I think seeds are more powerful than nuts. They're more concentrated. They tend to be more nutrient dense than nuts. Nuts are very calorie dense too. Seeds don't have that degree of calorie density, but they have a lot of nutrients. Sunflower seeds being the iron, then you have the flax seeds, you have the precursor of the omega-3 in the flax and chia seeds. Sesame seeds, poppy seeds. These are all different seeds that you can actually add, and they are so nutrient dense. And in fact, I think that who's it? Joel Fuhrman. He does a lot. He does something called G bombs. He calls it the G bombs. I think it's greens, onions, the allium family, berries. I can't remember what the other few things, but I think it's beans, legumes, and seeds. He doesn't put nuts in the G bombs. And I think seeds because they're so nutrient dense. So yes, I do prefer seeds. In fact, we advocate a lot of times add seeds to your salad, add seeds to your gravies. You blend some walnuts and poppy seeds and it becomes a nice gravy. Add some herbs like mint, particularly very strong herb, and you put it over your roasted vegetables. It tastes awesome.
Great.
Awesome. So let's see, any other questions from our audience?
I have a couple more. Can nuts really help with the risk of macular degeneration?
With macular degenerations, I don't know, but I'm going to assume, I know that macular degeneration is definitely helped by a plant-based diet. Many of these degenerative diseases are absolutely helped by a plant-based diet. I have to tell you, nuts sometimes you can be very sensitive to it, and usually it's because your gut is not well. But the seeds and nuts in macular degeneration, again, I don't know any specific study unless you have some reference for it, but I would say if it's in conjunction with a plant-based diet, I'm pretty sure it will help even macular degeneration.
Okay.
Because it does reduce oxidization, and that's really the basis of a lot of these degenerative diseases.
Okay. And you would prefer all these nuts raw, not roasted or
So that's
salted or
interesting.
candied.
Yeah, that's also interesting because some people, I find that some people can handle raw nuts, others actually gravitate towards roasted. Roasting the nuts sometimes can activate or inactivate. It all depends on the kind of nuts and what is the heat at which you're roasting. And I think in Ayurveda, there's a specific group, you're divided into 3 different groups. Some people actually need roasted nuts and others can handle raw nuts. But the legume seeds, like the peanuts, is better to boil or roast them and not have them raw.
Interesting.
No other questions coming through?
Not that I can see.
Well, how about flax seeds? Should they be ground before we eat them? I think I've read that you need to really get them ground, or else we won't be able to really absorb their nutrients because their shell is so hard.
Yeah. In fact, I think if you see Dr. Greger's videos, he always talks about taking the whole flax seeds and grinding them and making them a part of your meals. What I do is I put the flaxseed in the refrigerator. I'm just worried they get rancid because they're so unsaturated and they would probably get oxidized very fast. But yes, so that's what is the recommendation. When I look back, a lot of times people, I'm hoping that's why we have teeth. We should probably grind and eat and chew our food, and we could probably get the nutrients out of it. So I'm a big fan of chewing your food. So if you have whole flax seeds for some reason, you want it on your salad, just chew it, and I think you can get your nutrients out of it.
Oh, very good.
Awesome. Question from this side. Can nuts help with cognition and memory?
Absolutely, they do. So a lot of them have the precursors for the omega-3, particularly, I would say more than nuts, the seeds. I think flax seeds has been completely, lots of studies out there on the omega-3. So they do. A lot of times nuts and seeds, in fact, any of the cultures that use seeds and nuts, I don't think cognition is a big issue in those areas. We see it more, we're learning more and more about processed food and the vascular health, and vascular health is related to eating a lot of the animal proteins and animal fats. So the fat you find in nuts are really the good fats that help your vascular health. And anything that helps your vascular health helps your brain health. They're very much connected.
Great. So if we are wrapping things up, because I don't see any other questions, unless, Lisa, you have something else to ask?
I think we've covered them all pretty well. Thank you.
All right, great. So if you were to wrap things up in a nutshell for us, or say seed shell, do seeds come in shells? I don't know.
They do, right? A lot of them do.
Okay. Well, if you were to wrap things up in a seed or a nutshell, what would you want our audience to know tonight?
I think the key thing is look to nature for all of your solutions. I think it's right there, right in front of us. And nuts and seeds are very concentrated, dense, nutrient-dense foods that are actually very tasty. And I think you should include them as, I would say, a daily part of your meal. You can rotate between seeds and nuts, but make sure you have them on a regular basis. And if you have a sensitivity or an allergy, I would say work on going completely plant-based. Fix the gut, because it's all about the fiber in the food. And as with your very first video was all about the fiber in the food. And once that gut bacteria shifts, I think you'll be able to handle all of the seeds and nuts, and really make an effort to include them, particularly walnuts for cognition is very well known, and I think you should include them in your diet.
Wonderful. So Dr. Chellam, tell our audience where your practice is and how we might be able to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So we are in Michigan. Now we're in a suburb of Michigan called Novi, and it's holisticicon.com. And I think you can look for it. And we have a Facebook page. It's Nisha Chellam, MD. And we have a close community. Anybody can join our community. It's Holistic Icon Community. And we are pretty much, we try to make people plant strong. I believe just because you're a meat eater doesn't mean you cannot have a plant-based doctor. We try to just make you, if not educate you on being more plant strong. You don't have to necessarily give up meat just because you have a plant-based doctor, but we'll do the education part of it.
Fabulous. Well, thank you, Dr. Chellam. This has really been an amazingly informative evening with you. We appreciate you being a part of the Hippocrates Docs family and part of the Just One Thing for Health mission and program. And love your challenge. Add more seeds and nuts to your vegetables, and we will keep that going. We're actually going to look forward to continuing the conversation as part of our subscriber members information. And we look forward to just hearing more from you as time goes on.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Bye-bye.
And thanks to all of our audience for joining us. And remember, every week we are here with a new doctor on Physicians on Call. And we're going to soon be adding the practitioners, nutritionists, and others who will also be able to add to your journey to health and wellness with Just One Thing for Health, changing one habit at a time, because we know that changing habits can be daunting without support, and we're here for you. So thanks, everyone. Have a great evening and a great week, and we'll see you on Saturday with the next challenge. And our next doctor, I'm drawing a blank here, but check your email, check the website, justonethingforhealth.com, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.